consumer price index numbers should be dropping as this video airs. Now, we've been in a sideways pattern, which could break up or it could break down out of this pattern. Today, we're going to bring in Paul to find out what insights he has in the macro environment, as well as we will look at the charts from viewer suggestions from last week on altcoins. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. And if you like money in crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do note I'm not a financial advisor. Paul is not either. We also want to thank our Patreon members. We do have a private Discord that our Patreon members get exclusive access to. Now make it rain on that like button, strap in for the show, and help me welcome Paul.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
It is fantastic to have you here. Our audience absolutely loves you.
Oh, really? That's very kind. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to do the show, see what the picks are. And it's nice to have people asking you what you think. It really kind of forces you to crystallize your views and analyze all the markets, which is what I really like to do. I think having a holistic view of everything, even if you're not interested in equities or commodities, it's a good idea to look at everything when you're investing in one specific area. I think it just helps you. So it's really nice to be able to talk about all these different markets on this show, because as you know, most shows just focus on one thing.
Yeah, I have learned so much from having you on. And what's crazy is I didn't realize how integrated these different markets are. Sometimes correlated, sometimes, like they're polar opposites. As one goes down, the other goes up.
Inverse correlated.
Yeah, it's been eye-opening for me to see it. I didn't realize the goal of this channel was always to teach people to be better investors and how to think like an investor. And I really feel like your insights have really broadened my understanding and many of the audience members' understandings as well. So thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's always nice to talk to people about markets. You know what it's like when you're interested in something. It's nice just to talk about it. It's kind of fun, really. But I suppose to people outside of the financial world, it seems quite geeky because they're not really interested. So for people in the inside of the financial world, I find it absolutely fascinating, and it surprises me how few people decide to learn about the markets for themselves. Because when you get to understand what's really going on, and by that I mean don't just look at the headlines of what Bloomberg and other news stories are coming out, and that's not disparaging what they're doing, because of course they're feeding a machine of people who want to know what's happening today and what's going on in the news. So they're following what their customers want. But when you start to do your own analysis, you really feel like you're taking control, and it becomes quite interesting, like sports, watching how the outcome of certain plays or games or seasons or what have you. And in the same way, your team can do really badly for a few years and then suddenly come back in. And it's the same with the markets. It's a question of riding out the downsides and waiting for the upsides. But the big difference with looking at the markets in the way that I look at them, and hopefully other people will, is you don't get wedded to a particular product just because you happen to have some kind of affinity for it. And what I mean by that is we say don't get married to your position. And it like everything in the markets, it requires a bit of explanation, because there's two ways of reading that. If you think something's a really good long-term play, then that's your strategy and you should stick with it. And if you've done the research and that research bears it out and the market's going down, eventually the market will come around to your view, especially when there's a cyclical sort of downturn. That's pretty much what Buffett does with stocks. He says, I'm buying for the long term. In the short term, I couldn't care less what the market does. But where you got to be careful is flipping in and out of very short-term views and long-term views at the same time, like deciding you're investing for the long term, seeing it going down a few percent, and then deciding, oh, actually, I'm not. I'm going to bail out and try and,
And you usually end up bailing out right at the bottom when you do that. You're like, I'm married to this. And then you're like, oh, I've had 3 streaks of bad news and it decreasing, so I'm bailing. And you end up timing the exact bottom often when you do that.
Exactly. And it's also important to look at the structure of what's going on. So if we were in a massive bull market in crypto and your particular market was going down, then you'd look at the sector. Like DeFi is a sector that is under a cloud. It will turn around, but at the moment it's under a bit of a cloud, and that's just everything in the sector. So, but if it was just your particular sector that was down, or your particular coin in a bullish sector, that's telling you something. There's telling you that there's a problem, and that's why I think it helps to have a look at the bigger picture to see what's going on. So there are certain coins that are doing much better than others, and there's signs of speculation in those coins, and there's also signs of uncertainty and potential further downside as well. So it's a difficult market. It means you've got to really be careful at what you're picking up. But I think structurally, cyclically, nothing's really changed in the long term, in the sense that we see this as a corrective phase, which is being driven by outside factors, i.e. the dollar is going up because people think the Fed are going to keep pushing rates up. And I don't think they will. I think they're going to turn around at some point. And when that realization comes in that actually things aren't quite as bad as being made out, then we will see potentially a massive rally. And then when that's happening, obviously you'd expect whatever markets you've been analyzing and waiting for, you'd want those to go up. You'd want those to be part of that rally. And if they're not, and this is all technicals, then if they're not, then you've obviously got to look at what's going on and whether there's some problem, or whether they're just going to play catch up a bit later on. But generally speaking, you want to try and, from a technical point of view, buy into the strongest markets in an upward trend, which is the hardest thing to do, and stay out of the weakest ones in a downward trend, because they're leading the way down and they're leading the way up. So it's a bit like your experience of property is, as we've said before on the show, is extremely interesting, because it's actually exactly the same in the markets. You're looking at, in exactly the same way, you're looking at the hot sectors of the US property market around the whole country. And then, so where do people want to invest? And then you drill down into certain areas, and some could be sort of bombed out and up and coming. And usually the artists go in there and they start getting in there because they don't mind that the area is a bit grotty, and then they start spending money, and then money comes in, and then it becomes more money comes in, it becomes cool, and then you see it then take off, and then big money comes in. So these things go through cycles, and so it's exactly the same. And that's why I find it really fascinating how these markets work. But you just got to take a step back and say, you've got to be in it for the long term. It's not the sort of thing you do by saying, oh, I fancy trading, being a crypto trader for a little bit, and then I'll do something else. If you're not interested in it, if you're only in it to make money, it's a dangerous game, because you've got to put some work in. And if you're not willing to put the work in, then it's a bit like me saying I want to be a brain surgeon because they earn a lot of money. I mean, why would you want to do that? It's going to be a lot of work if you're not really interested in it. So
they do 3 or 4 months, and then they're like, I'm out. This didn't work for me.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
And nobody gets it right all the time as well. You know, anyone who says that they get everything 100% right is it's just not possible. If you never got anything wrong, then you own the market in a month. And so it's kind of, yeah. And so, and it's very important to point out that when we talk about the markets, things change in intra-week. You might look at something and think, that looked really great, and now it doesn't. And we might not talk about it for a long time. So that's why I like people to obviously listen to perhaps what we might think, but also always do your own research and your own analysis, and make the decisions you make your own decisions, not sort of because I'm buying this because somebody else told me. Because I learned very early on that you have to own your own decisions. You have to own your own trading views. If you start blaming other people, then you'll never learn, because you'll just learn how to blame other people.
Some people want to be able to come to YouTube and they want to be told what to buy and when to sell. And number one problem with that is that's financial advice. And so then you're putting everything in the hands of someone else. Number two, I found life goes better when we take 100% responsibility of everything in our lives. Like, we let go of the idea that somebody's going to come in and save us, somebody's going to do it all for us, that we're here to save ourselves and make it happen for ourselves. So when I got serious about crypto, which is almost right away when I saw it, because I realized the volatility could create massive wealth, I got super excited and I dug into research and as much as I could learn so that I could become good at this. And what else could have made me millions of dollars just within 3 years than crypto, right? Like, sometimes if you just happen to really luck out on real estate, it happens. But I've been in real estate investment for 20 something years. And, real estate is a great way to make good money, but it takes much longer. And so crypto was really exciting to me, but there is no person that's just going to give you signals that you can follow and you make all this money. It's about learning, diving into the research yourself, making some theses as to why, placing some buys at what you feel are low prices, and then seeing how it all plays out. What's funny is the people that I know that have taken the long-term approach and they've dollar cost averaged at general lows, they've actually all become millionaires. A lot of people that have like bought trading signals or done other things or just like committed to like 4 years and then they stuck around for like 4 months. Yeah, no, they're not millionaires. In fact, all those people are down, and many of them sold at lows, so they have no chance of doing really well because they're not even in the market at these lows and will not get the massive ride up when it comes. I wondered if we could look at the dollar, if you could pull that up, because what's so interesting is we seem to be having this blow off top with US dollar, right? And that's really exciting because when it reverses, and it will, then people are going to be putting the money into other assets. But right now, as the dollar continues so strong, people are rolling into it.
Absolutely.
Right, so that is a perfect blow off top, like parabolic move, right?
Yeah, so we are seeing signs that the trend is in its final phases. One of the signs is we had a very strong NFP number on Friday. I don't know if you happen to have a look at that, but the market is obsessed with data at the moment. They're looking to see if the data's strong, will the Fed raise interest rates? The data came in really strong on Friday, and the dollar hasn't gone down, but it's also, you might notice, it hasn't broken its prior high, which is at 114.81. Now, that's interesting. So we're lower than the actual previous high, even though the data is still really strong. Now, for me, I can't say that this is a definitive sell as yet, because we don't have a topping pattern. We've got sentiment that's running very hot. I know there's a few people that are trying to short the dollar as well, and I've been looking at the positions, and at the moment they're still higher than I would like, which means that we haven't had that final capitulation. But we are nearer the end than we are the beginning. And the beginning was down here. This is I've mentioned it before. It's the start of the trend, and we've seen it accelerate, and it's become more and more of a story across the world. Now, I don't know about you, but you being Americans out there with your strong dollars, looking around the world at what you can pick up cheap, I'd be very tempted to be investing abroad and buying things that are relatively cheap because your currency's gone up by a huge amount. So that's the beginning of the end of the trend, when you see the purchasing power of a currency very high relative to assets out there. And so, for example, if you were looking at the commodity currencies, the commodity countries, the countries that create and have things like base metals and precious metals and things like that, it's going to be very tempting to buy some of the stocks of those countries because your dollars are so strong. Because ultimately, unless there is a complete destruction of demand and the Fed just raise interest rates and don't look at anything else for the next few years, you are going to need some form of base and precious metals for industry. So, and oil as well. So the strong dollar will amount to a change in trend at some point. So we haven't got that final signal. We've got a good signal. We've got a nice top here, but we're in the final stages. So I'm still waiting for that reversal. That reversal would come through a break of this trend line. See this trend line here? It's been very strong. It's kind of the minimum. And it also sits in with the medium-term moving average, this green moving average here. They sit very close together, and there's quite a lot of support around this 109.29 area. If we could break that, then this would start to look like a top. Now, if I could just switch over to the S&P, because the S&P 500 is an indication of how, for a start, it's a good indication of how trends start to change. And it's rarely a one-day event. It starts with one day, obviously, and that can be quite a dramatic day, but it's usually a process. And we see this upward trend, which was then starting to fail. The highs came in and the market went down and went sideways. And if you look at the tops, they rolled up and then they started to roll down again. And that was this phase here was the indication that the trend was turning. Now, we have got a correction, obviously, that's going on. And I just wanted to put this into a bit of context. Now, if we think back to the beginning of the pandemic and the pandemic lows, they're all the way down here. And look at where we are here. We are still in a correction. And yeah, we got to be cautious because there could be a bit more downside. But there's massive support coming in here at 35.10. If it hits 35.10, that's a 50% retracement. I would say that's one of those levels where there will be people out there who will buy it on a first hit basis just because it's a Fibonacci level. So we're getting close to support, and the dollar may be close to a high, and it could be this week. It could be in the next 2 weeks. I can't say exactly, but this is the corrective trend, and equities are usually the most sensitive to the reversals. Now, on top of that, if we have a look at what's going on in base metals, as I was mentioning before, base metals usually go down when the dollar goes up and vice versa. So base metals have actually been doing quite well. This is aluminium. Of course, all the iPads and things that you buy, computers, they use a lot of aluminium. And what we've got here is a change in trend. And so the market has been in a very strong downward trend, but look, it's showing signs of life. We've also got the same. If we look at nickel, hang on, there we go. Here's lead. Sorry. So here's lead. That's in a consolidation. It's not significantly off the high. And copper's possibly the most important of all the base metals. We say it's a metal with a PhD. That's been in a downward trend. It's had its rally, but it's potentially basing. Now, I know it's still inconclusive at this point, so it could go either way, but it's not bearish anymore. It's more a consolidation with upside potential rather than a very clear downward trend. And so I think these base metals during the crisis of 2007, 2008, when all of that ended, you saw a rally in the commodity markets. And I remember it very clearly because we were seeing all the commodity markets rallying, and yet the sentiment was really, really bearish. And
so
I think
rallied first is what you're saying, and it was kind of like a precursor, like a leading indicator.
Yeah, and at the time, I was a little bit bullish. I thought we'd see the market go up, but I would hold my hands up and say, because so much debt was created, I didn't really trust the rally. I didn't think it would last, and I was dead wrong. So the market just kept going up and up and up, and technically it was saying it was going up, and I was saying, wow, how can this happen? Because they haven't really solved anything other than caused a lot more debt. But that's why I should really use charts and not look at the fundamentals, because the charts always tell you what's going on, you see. And so, but definitely the first sort of change in trend came from commodities. So that's why I like to keep an eye on them. And they're showing signs of life. They're showing signs of buying, even though the dollar hasn't quite turned around yet. So this tells me we're not that far away from confirmation and potentially into this, what we call risk on phase, which if we're right about, this could be massive. I mean, it really could, because the market is going to be wrong footed. They're going to be short when everything risk on is going up. and they won't trust it for a long time. So, you know, these are dark days at the moment, but I truly do feel that when it turns around, the upside will be worth it. But as I say, we've got to wait for those signals, and they're not quite there yet. And when they are, we will let you know.
Yeah, what's interesting is I just wanted to share a little bit of psychological preparation that sometimes things seem even worse. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you can pull up the dollar chart. Sometimes, like, there is a chance that some numbers come out poorly, like the CPI comes out poorly, and equities or stocks go through a sell-off, and that translates over into crypto, and the dollar runs higher, freaking people out, testing, oh my gosh, and it just makes you panic, almost like FOMO, but it's fear on the other side, right? So it'll cause some people to FOMO into the dollar. And so if we look at that parabolic move, it could go higher. Should it? No, but that won't stop it because people act emotional, right? And if that happens, it breaks a lot higher. People will be selling out of their stocks. People will be selling out of their crypto. And it will cause you to second guess your thesis. And what often happens is then it goes exactly how you were thinking it would, that then the crypto market then takes off after it just causes a last capitulation that shakes everybody, shakes some people out, and then it gets them to sell right at the bottom. And then things are ready to run as the dollar then falls. That money then goes into other places as people flee the dollar because they're looking at it thinking it's going to fall and they want to be in something else that's going to go up. And so that's my guess on how it plays out. It'll be fun to watch and see. I've got a lot of money allocated across the crypto market that, you know, I'm content to wait. I would love for the turnaround to be in the next 2 weeks. But if it's in the next 2 months or the next 6 months or 12 months, that's fine with me too.
Yeah. And we've got, it should be noted that CPI, I believe, I thought it was coming out today. Actually, I must admit, I got the date wrong. I think it's actually coming out tomorrow. So US CPI, consumer prices.
This will be airing for everyone tomorrow. So it'll be coming out the same day as this video.
So you'll know the answer to this CPI question. Now, obviously been trying to second guess what the market is going to do. And my feeling is that it's going to be strong enough to keep a certain amount of interest in interest rates going up. But I don't think I think it'll be indecisive. So if it comes in really strong, actually, I don't mind that. If it comes in really strong, then it's almost like what the market doesn't like is uncertainty, because it absolutely hates uncertainty. Bad news is better than uncertainty. And we've got uncertainty. And if you think about what bad news is like, okay, I've got to get to this meeting and the car's broken down. That's bad news. And but you can deal with that because you can say, okay, I'll get a cab, I'll get an Uber, I'll get my neighbor to take me and pay him some money, whatever it might be. You can work out a solution to bad news. But uncertainty is you don't know whether the car's going to run or not. It might break down halfway, and you just don't know whether you need another option. And so that's what the market does. It's like, do we know whether they're going to pause or not? We don't know, or the short-term market doesn't know. So there's all this uncertainty about whether rates are going to be going up. So if we get another really strong number, the market will then start to say, this could just be the tail end of the data, because remember, the data is backward looking. They're looking at data from months ago that was high and is now coming down because commodity prices have fallen, demand has been destroyed, rates have been going up, people's habits have changed. So this should all be reflected in the CPI number. If it's not reflected in this one, it will definitely be reflected in the next one. So even a strong number, which could push the dollar a bit higher, it'd be towards the end of the move. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a final kind of blowout move and then a move lower. But having said that, if it's weaker and it turns here, I'd be happy with that. I mean, that's I'm not trying to tell the market what to do. I'm, you know, my job is to try and read what's going on in the market and then follow it. But you got to get into the psychology of what the market's thinking, and they are scared about a strong number. But ultimately, I think they're just worried about uncertainty, and I don't see rates going up to 5% in the US. I just don't think they're going to keep pushing them up like that. We're already seeing the effects. The stock market's come down. There's already been these effects in the markets, like we've said before, and dollar strength is hurting. I mean, it is hurting. So they're going to have to look at data that they will be reflected in the data. It's just there's such a lag between what they do to the markets and what actually happens in their data, that they're always behind the curve in a certain sense. So it'll be really interesting. But the big numbers, the CPI, used to be non-farm payrolls. The non-farm payrolls used to move the market a huge amount, and now it's CPI. So we shall see.
I wanted to share something with you. And this is a video. I released a short video on this that goes more in depth. But this is basically Bitcoin since its inception, right? And what has me super excited and bullish about the crypto market and taking positions now is this is Bitcoin's trend. And look at how it's hitting this lower trend line, right? And so I like to buy along the lower on a bigger trend that I'm interested in. And I don't worry so much about timing the exact bottom. I used to when I was newer and I was trying to make every penny count, and I still hardly ever hit the exact bottom. Now I just generally buy near the bottom, and then I wait till it hits the trend reverses and it goes up high. But depending on how long it takes to go up, if it gets along near the top again, that is quite a difference. So these lows, currently Bitcoin's trading about 20,000, and the upper part is above 200,000. So that's a 10x swing in Bitcoin. And some of the riskier alts, when Bitcoin swings up 10x, some of these alts will swing 40, 50, 100, 200x. And if I'm lucky, one or two that I'm in go like 1,000x. And that's why I choose to be in the riskier altcoins while we're on this lower trend line. Now, risky altcoins are a terrible place to be when you're along the upper trend line. Terrible. Because not only is Bitcoin going to reverse, but many of those altcoins are going to reverse much more drastically. So I'm excited as at some point this will turn around and start heading upwards. And that's going to be some fun times.
And that overall is an upward trend. And, you know, there's a lot of... I also find it interesting that people think it's finished and, you know, the whole sector's dead and gone and it was just a fad or whatever, when it's trading at like $19,000. I mean, it's not exactly cheap. I mean, nobody says that about I mean, when I say cheap, I mean it's not exactly like pennies. It's not like it's gone to zero. And people don't say that about gold. I mean, they say for example, well, Bitcoin hasn't acted like an inflation hedge. Well, gold hasn't really either. So, but it doesn't mean that if somebody came to you with some bars of gold, you'd say, no, thank you, I don't want those. You know, so, you know, if somebody offered you some Bitcoin, I'm sure all the people who are negative on it would say, thank you very much. They would take it. So it's psychology is interesting. Everything's relative to everything else, isn't it? And so at this relative point, when interest rates are going up and we're seeing this test of this asset class and a clear out of perhaps some projects that were a little more speculative than they should have been, that's a really good thing. That's a good cycle thing that should happen, and then it clears the way for the good projects into the next phase, and it should be really exciting. But you've got to be there every week waiting for that turn, and it's can be a bit frustrating, I'll be honest with you, but it's always worth it when things turn around. But I love charts like that. That's a great chart because it shows the long-term trend.
So let's dive into some of the altcoin picks, but let's start off with one that was not on our list. This is one I wanted to bring up, and it's from our strategic partner, Wanchain. I wanted to take a look at their token with you. The ticker symbol for that is WAN.
Yeah, let me, I'll just put it on here and let's see.
Yep.
Is that it?
That is absolutely it.
Okay. So yeah, this is you can see the trend is down, and you can see also that the moving averages are both turning down, and it's also just broken through. If I can just zoom in here and give you a little zoom into here, you can see it's just gone below this consolidation. So there's a lot of support right here. We got support here and here and here and here, and it's testing it. So I don't want to see it go much lower than this, because I think it feels like it actually does want to go a bit lower. And if I had to say, I'd say it's 70-30 that it's going to get a bit cheaper. Now, there is big support, and there's longer support coming in at lower levels. So this could be a buying opportunity from a longer term perspective. But for me, I need this to turn around. I need this trend to be reversing, this moving average to be turning up, for me to get bullish on it. So in the very short term, it's in a consolidation. So it's consolidating price action, and we are waiting to see which way the market wants to go next. But because the dominant trend has been downwards, we've got to respect that for now. Now, it's not surprising, because Bitcoin, Ethereum are under a bit of pressure. Just about everything is, really. So it's not like this is under pressure and everything else is rallying, and that would be a concern. So it's fitting in with the broader picture of cautiousness, which is across the board. Now, depending on what analysis you've done, if you think that this is a great project, then we could be coming into some really good levels in the next few weeks, and timing it, we might get some cheaper prices with which to jump in. As I said before, I have to use technicals because I don't look at the fundamentals and I don't know what's behind it, other than obviously that they're a sponsor, and I'm sure because they're a sponsor, that has a level of kind of integrity that would make me give it a second look, and perhaps have this as one earmarked for a turnaround when everything turns around. So I'd hope that this be one of the first ones. What I'd like to see is some form of sharp rally to kick the move off, and there are some that have done that, but you see this sort of really sharp impulse move where everybody decides they just want to buy in and not wait for the broader market to turn around. So we haven't seen that quite as yet, but that's still possible. So for the moment, I'd have to say I'm still treading carefully with this, and this
is definitely a wait by your metrics, because you like a clear signaled breakout.
Yeah,
and the trend to be turned around, and it's not showing that the trend's turned around yet. Looking at the chart, I'm going to set aside some fiat in case it drops more, and then I'm just going to buy some more. I have a big position in this. I like this one. I talk to the team frequently, and they have a lot of big stuff coming down the pipe that they've only been able to hint at. But I like where they're hinting. They have some of the best minds in the business. So they do cross-chain bridge, trustless cross-chain bridges, and interchain operability. I've loved this project since they launched, their ICO in 2017, which I was not able to get in. And I was very frustrated that I was not able to get in. So I got it during the bear market when it got really cheap. And so, yeah, it's giving people a second bite at the apple at really inexpensive prices, which is good. And it's one that a lot of people aren't talking about. Kind of like Matic was once one that almost nobody was talking about. And the tech was improving and building, and they were doing amazing things behind the scenes, yet nobody was talking about them. And then all of a sudden, one day, they absolutely blew up. So I like to buy things cheap, not expensive. So, thanks for reviewing, Juan. For me, it's a wait. I'm going to put some fiat on the side and see if it comes back down. I have a healthy position already. If it comes even lower, then I'm going to buy some more. But for now, it's definitely a wait. Let's take a look at ADA.
Yeah. So it is, that should be this one. Yeah. So unfortunately, again, this is one that we've been tracking that's been in this triangular constriction, and triangular constrictions are usually bearish in as much as the market is in a downward trend, or whatever the prior trend is. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a downward trend, but the prior trend here was downwards. The market has been consolidating with the lows rising, the highs coming down. So we can basically draw a triangle. And the thing with triangles is that the market becomes more and more compressed until it breaks out and then goes in the direction of the prior trend. So it's not like a 90-10 trade. It's more like a 70-30 sort of trade, that it will go downwards. And it has broken this lower support line, which is pretty much in line with our expectations. Now, the next point, or important point, would be at this 38 cents area, because that's the prior support. Now, I like to see support and resistance reversing its roles. And this was the breakout point here, which was resistance, which became massive support on this spike down, which it's sort of edged into right now. Now, given that it's come back to it and the trend is down and it's coming out of a triangle and all those other things, I would be braced for a breakout to the downside. But I think with projects like this and with the broader market the way it is, you'll probably see it break down and then sort of shake everybody out and then go back up again. So it's definitely a wait for me, but the trend is still, negative, unfortunately, and it needs to recover this 39. Well, it's around 39, but I would say at the very least, it needs to break this resistance point. So this could still come into play, this resistance line, even though the triangle is effectively already over. I would use that as a marker for a breakout to the upside. So yeah, it's still following the broader trend of crypto, I'd say.
Yeah. It's so for you, it's definitely a wait. For me, it's a wait, almost like a sell for those that don't see. My Cardano is a long-term hold, so I don't want to flip it out of a long-term hold into because I'm tempted to sell and then rebuy back in. The problem is it changes the capital gain situation when it swings up, right? So I'm content just to hold. So for me, that's why I'd say a wait, but it's probably going to break further down, is exactly what it's looking like. Now, there was just a big CNFT or Cardano NFT conference over the weekend in Vegas, which I went to. We aired some videos, interviewed briefly a couple different teams. I talked to Virtua's CEO really quickly, and I really liked him. I'm probably going to bring him on the channel. Also, Cornucopias that I've covered in a lot of times. I got to meet Robert in person and Josh Jones. A lot of fun, and they had their game demo there, which was amazing. I was really impressed, and somehow I think I'm the fourth highest score on their leaderboard for out of 250 people that played.
Cool.
It was their racing game, and my first lap I absolutely did horrible. I probably had the worst time. In the second lap, well, I kind of learned from my mistakes. The second lap went really, really well, and so I guess it came down to best lap time. So I was like, yes. A lot of fun at the event, but Cardano's, overall, this was my chart, and I like how we got this nice rounding bottom here. This is not on log scale. If I put it on log scale, it'd look a little bit different, but here's its highs at over $3. And so we're all the way down here, almost, an 87% retracement. And I think it's going to break a little bit lower. And then, it might continue sideways some more, and then it might be ready to run. So,
yeah, I mean, it should be remembered that the low sort of March 20 fits in with the low in equities, and it's correcting pretty much in line. And maybe it was a little early compared to the other markets, but it's still in a correction that we're seeing elsewhere. So, and obviously this is not making new lows. It's in the context of this rally that it's correcting. So we should find support somewhere. It's just a question of where. So we're just waiting for that signal. So it's not like it's sort of plumbing new
Cardano, and I love these prices. I don't hold a lot of blue chips. They're just not risky enough for me. This is the only blue chip that I'm presently holding. because it's the only one that, if the stars align, it does really, really well. In my opinion, it's the only one that can 100x from here. That doesn't mean it will 100x from here, but it's the only one in my mind that has like 100x potential. So in order to 100x from here, it'd have to go to $39, which is over $1 trillion market cap. Could that happen? It is possible. Is it likely? Nah, I wouldn't even say it's likely, but it is possible, especially because sometimes when things go up, they go up way too much, and you get this blow off top effect like we're seeing with the US dollar, because people continue to chase those green candles and FOMO in, and then finally the end comes and everybody panics back out of it. So yeah, that's my thought. Good suggestion. Let's look at ANML. This is Animal Concerts. Yeah. We've had them on the channel before. They're basically bringing superstar singers and other people to metaverses.
Sure. Would it be okay if I just quickly had a look at one other thing and then we could go through? Yeah, absolutely. So I was just going to say, I know it divides the community, so I'm not saying whether this is good or not from a project point of view, but I just want to show you in terms of speculation how what I'm looking for in terms of a breakout. Now, XRP, I mean, what is going on? I know there was a court case and something happened with it. I don't really look at the fundamentals. I don't listen to it at all. So maybe you know a bit more about what's happening there. But this is starting to look bullish, and this is a sharp move with a triangular constriction. Now, if it takes out this resistance point up here, then it could look interesting for a move higher. As I say, it does divide the community. I'm not necessarily saying that this is the one to get, but what I like to see is at least some markets breaking out, and this is what I'd like Cardano to do, because over here it definitely looked bearish in a very similar way, and then we got this turnaround and this sharp impulsive move. So it's not like everything is being sold. There are some pockets of relative strength, and it looks like these moving averages are going to cross over in a bullish cross to the upside as well. So, you know, there are some things that are moving. It's just broadly speaking, they're fewer than the ones that are moving down. So that's the sort of technical thing I'd like to see, especially this sort of triangular constriction here, which is a short-term pause before it may, you know, move into new highs. Now, the doing it when everything's going down is a big ask. So I would be, again, very cautious because the broader macro position doesn't support it. But, you know, I like looking at things like that because they're little bright lights of breakouts that give me sort of hope that other things are going to do the same. Now, over to the market that you asked about, which is, again, it sounds like such a fascinating project and one that I'd really be interested in just from a project point of view, doing really well. But from a charting perspective, it still needs to turn around. We've got a very smooth downward trend here, and it's not one that I would step into anytime soon from my perspective, just because there's no reversal pattern, and it is respecting the downside more than anything else. Where if it was like something that was really, really interesting and you were convinced that the fundamentals were fantastic, I might put in a little marker around, I'll just show you here where the resistance is. So 0.5%, just over. So that area would be interesting because it's traded close to it a few times, came up as resistance. And then if it swung through that, you might get a little minor reversal. But that's really, you know, how can I put it? I'm looking pretty hard to find something positive about it. So ultimately, I'd rather wait and look for it to reverse this trend and then sort of jump aboard something that could be long-term bullish.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten punished in price. A lot of times when these things happen, they take a while to happen. So like one of the projects that did really well from the crypto winter into this one was a project called the Copi, and they had been working on their app, and people who didn't follow it closely just kind of totally lost track of it. And their app came out and still the price didn't pump. But when people realized their app had like licensed Batman NFTs, the first actual licensed Batman NFTs, and other things. Then the price pumped and it went like 1,000x increase. And so sometimes these higher risk projects, because what could happen? Well, this project could run out of funding and they could collapse and go under, right? So that's the risk, that it goes to zero. The upside is it's a bear market, and there's a lot of projects out there that are not on people's minds because they haven't done any concerts yet. So people aren't thinking about them and stuff. And so the token price, especially because pre-sale investors are usually getting their tokens vested, the price goes down and it goes down some more and it goes down some more, and it's out of sight, out of mind. And then all of a sudden money starts coming in the market, first into some major things that are on people's minds, but then some of these things start to roll out and happen. And then all of a sudden some of these smaller low cap coins and projects come into focus, and their tokens can do amazing things. So this is definitely in that higher risk category, like high risk, which gives it maybe a 20% chance it absolutely fails during this bear market, maybe even a little bit higher. But that's really not a horrible fail potential compared to the potential upsides. So I like the team behind this. I'm looking over at it on CoinMarketCap. So the fully diluted market cap is all the way down to 7.2 million. The actual market cap is somewhere far below that. We don't know how many tokens are in circulation. So the max supply is 12.5 billion. And so we don't know how many are presently in circulation. So we don't know what the market cap is. It's getting really cheap. That chart looks like it's going to get even cheaper. So for me, it's also a wait, just like I think it was for you.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking to get some more of this. I own some. I've been picking up points. Yeah, so I'm looking to get more of this, and I'm just going to dollar cost average little bits at a time into this one. But for me, the chart looks scary. I might put like $50 into it, and just dollar cost average some more in case I miss the big turnaround, because I'm not looking at it, because there's 18,000 different altcoin projects, and even the ones I'm diversified into, I'm somewhere between 150 to 200 different projects. So I can't even hardly keep track of the ones I'm invested in. Let's take a look over at Copi, Cornucopias.
Yeah. So I think we had a look at this I don't think it was last week, but perhaps it was the week before. And I think I was saying that it looked like it was trying to turn around. So I may have been bullish on it. And I still kind of like that view, even though everything again is tinged with caution until the broader picture changes. Now, it's not really done a whole lot since then. It's gone sideways, but the consolidation here is good enough for me, because this downward trend line is broken. This was forming a reversal pattern of sorts. Usually the best reversal patterns is when you break the trigger and then the market just goes, and then it doesn't come back and start chewing it, as I call it. So this is broken it and it's chewing it, which is a bit annoying. So it's kind of taking the heat off the upside, but it's also consolidating and not moving lower, which is a good sign, given that it was looking pretty bearish in September. So what do we need here? I would still, I wouldn't add to a position if I had one, and I wouldn't feel sort of compelled to be jumping in right now, but I would like to see it where I'd feel like I better hurry up and not miss out on it. It would be if it broke through this level here at 15 cents, or sorry, not 15 cents, 1.5 cents. So lots of resistance at that point. And if it gets through there, this would really start to look like a developing upward trend. So in terms of sort of nibbling, like you say, putting a few dollars into it just because, and then forgetting about it and treating it like something that you may not come back to for a few months, and then you'll have a look at it again. Yeah, maybe you could trade it in that way, because at least it's not in this strong downward trend phase. But if we're going to look to it week to week, I think we should probably wait for it to break this resistance, but it is showing some more bullish signs than some of the other markets. So right here, right now, I think I'd wait, even if I had the position. If I had a position, I wouldn't feel like bailing out either, because I want to see what happens against this support line here. So I'd like to see it go sideways and then break up again, and then I'd feel much more confident about it moving higher. The big resistance line is up here because it accelerated down. So it's still trying to reverse this trend. So it would take a little while to do that anyway. But yeah, this is an interesting one. I'd like to come back to it actually.
Yeah. Great. This was the one that had the demos that I got to play, and they were impressive. So if the viewers, you can check out, it's a quick, like 1 minute video just from a few days ago. They can see what it looks like. As far as the project itself, I've covered this one a number of times. I had them on the channel, right? Some things that I like about him. He's got that nice low market cap that I like. Overall, it's at 8.8 million. I like these lower market cap gems. They are the first AAA level game on Cardano. Cardano continues to chug away in improving their tech. Imagine a few years down the road when their Hydra solution is implemented, which will allow them to have up to 1,000 transactions per second for every node that they have. As they spin up, say, 1,000 different nodes, that could get to 1 million transactions per second and give us the kind of speed that blockchain really needs to have in order to interact with games very quickly. And
do you think that's really possible?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
That okay. Yeah, they've taken their time to architect it all out, and they've been slowly doing everything they said they were going to do. It often takes longer, but that's common with the programming world. And so Cardano continues to hit milestones and do a good job. I just am pleased with what I'm seeing from Charles Hoskinson and his team and the ecosystem, that I think the future is very, very bright for not only Cardano, but the big players in its ecosystem. And I'm really glad I went over the weekend to the NFT conference. It was amazing how many different projects were there. The culture was strong. I mean, the market is abysmal. Look at where Cardano's price is, and yet so many people were there. Cornucopias prices are also in the tank because we're in the bear market. Everything's down. And there were tons of people there to see these projects and for the ecosystem. So spending their own money, flying all the way to Las Vegas from all over the world in order to go to a Cardano NFT conference shows the strength of the community. It was cool. Yeah, I'm really glad I went. All right, for me, I have tons of cornucopias, right? So I'm like, am I going to add to more of my position? No, I'm happy with what I have. I do generally like this price a lot. And so I'm going to say wait, but that's a personal bias because I have so much. You know, if I didn't, it would probably be a dollar cost average price for me.
Cool.
All right, let's jump over to IAGON.
Right, IAGON. So yeah, I prepared some of these charts in advance, which I don't usually do, because I like to have like my first view is usually the best view, and with this, the trend, as you can see, is still down, and it's a qualified downward trend because we've had what I would describe as the panic sell. So we had this panic down here and then a reversal. So the question is, yes, it did panic. It did panic at the end of a trend, which is what you would normally anticipate an ending to be. And something of this size is usually enough to convince everybody who's sort of on the fence about whether they're going to sell or not to actually bail out. And then we've seen the strong rally. Now, usually with patterns like this, it takes a while before the market then reverses. So sometimes it's down and then up and then sideways for a while, and then it goes into a different sort of reversal pattern, which is potentially what's going on here. So we're now correcting, given that the market has made this spike in the ground, if you like. Now, if it retraces too much of this spike, then unfortunately it becomes a downward trend again. And I usually allow it to go about 50% of the previous retracement before I would decide to say that it's over. So if we look at around 50%, we're probably not that far away from it. So it should be finding some support soon. Now, where it creates a more interesting reversal pattern is if it can recover and then re-break this trend line and then take out this resistance at just below a cent. So it's at 0.008. That is where the two peaks came in. There was a peak here before the sell-off and then an attempt to re-break it, which failed. So those 2 points are really key for me. If we cross that, it will have broken the downward trend line. Also, it would be trending upwards, and that would be the base that I'd be looking for. So it's a wait here for now, just because the overall trend has been down and it's still in this turning point. It's the jury's still out as to whether it's completely turned. But as I say, it's not just a clear cut, oh, it's definitely going down, it's a sell, because we've had this spike and we have to respect that price action. That's telling us that we've seen this very important capitulation. So it is a wait, but it's also a really interesting one. So I can see why you wanted to have a look at it.
Yeah, let me share some on the fundamental side. So for you, it's definitely a wait. The trend looks like it's going to be more painful before it turns around. So IAGON is efficient, secure storage through the blockchain. So cloud storage for Web 3.0. I do hold some of this myself. And yeah, I'm content just to wait it out. For me, if it goes down further, I'll be really tempted to buy some more. I'm already tempted to buy some more because looking at coin market cap, they show what the market cap is. And this is the kind of market cap I like on projects I think that will survive. Because when we go from bear market like this to bull market, it's nothing for this market cap to go up to 30 million or 100 million. At 30 million, that is a 100x from here. If it goes to 90 million, that's a 300x from here. I like those kind of numbers, but do note that there will be more tokens probably coming into this market cap because we see that their market cap versus their fully diluted market cap, it looks like only maybe 11% of the tokens are in circulation. So if it does go to a 90 million market cap, but twice as many tokens are in circulation, think of it as not a 300x, but 150x from here. So yeah, I like this one. Good suggestion by one of the viewers. Decentralized storage, there's a lot of projects fighting and going over this space. And it's not clear at all who's going to win. And we don't have to know before the next market upturn, because the next market upturn, probably all the projects in that space will do well. As far as which ones will ultimately be the leaders, I can't tell you. And I don't even have to know that because I'm looking from this bottom into potentially the next top. Most likely, most of those projects will still be around. They might over the coming 10 or 20 years have mergers or be bought out or might even fail during that time. But I'm mostly looking from here to anywhere from 5 or 6 months from now to a couple of years from now in that swing. So, all right. Cool. I think that's all. Oh, we got one more suggestion to look at. VRA, which is exciting. We haven't looked at this one in a while. So fantastic suggestion for those that are wanting to make some suggestions for next week. Remember, only put up to 2 below, and I do give you priority if it gets pretty busy if you write some things that you like about it, especially some fundamental details.
Yeah, so this is interesting. I've got a long-term chart here because I wanted to see where the support was potentially coming in, and we can see that there's support from this rally. This is a weekly chart. I am going to move over to a daily chart in just a moment, but I wanted to show you this sort of bed of support all the way down here. Now, I know it's still pretty far away, but this market is in a correction. So it's in a corrective phase. But if we look at the longer term, there is a couple of really good support levels. So the first one, I would say this whole zone here is really interesting support. And I'd be tempted to sort of pick some up in that zone. Now, if that fails, then we've got this support down here at just 0.0015, so just 1.5 cents. So that's really where I would say if it gets any lower than that, then things have gone far too wrong for me technically. But the trend is down, so I didn't want to just say, well, okay, it's down, that's it, there's no opportunities there. We are coming into some really good support. So two places I would look at is third of 3 cents, or sorry, a third of a cent is the first place, and then this area here, because it was a consolidation before the market accelerated, we could see a repeat of buying, like resistance becomes support when the market comes down. So I think this is interesting. This is a good one to keep an eye on. And it trades nicely from a technical point of view. And what I mean by that is it seems to respect technicals. Some markets are a bit more they almost look random in some of the data, but this is a bit smoother. So definitely one I'd keep an eye on. And it's a wait for the moment, but some really good levels coming up.
I love this one. Great suggestion by one of our viewers, and I'm glad to bring it. They brought it back to my attention. Put a little note in here. VRA. I'll probably pick up a little bit more. It might get cheaper, but I love the potential for this one in the future. So looking at coin market cap, I wish the market cap was lower than what it is. And again, it's one of those that only 1/10 of the supply is in circulation. So I don't love that aspect of it. What I do love is the narrative that they're in. So blockchain-based solution to end video ad fraud. Basically, if you think about, they're using the blockchain for esports, for ads during esports. And really, if you think it's kind of like a Twitch type streaming software for esports. And I think a lot of video games and games are going to go towards blockchain because of the asset ownership. And so as it does, Veracity's position themselves well. So even though that market cap's higher than I normally like, it would be nothing for this to 100x from here or further as market comes in. So 100x from here would take it to a $4 billion market cap. It could, if the market goes really high, it could 10x over that and do 1,000x from here. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns, but this one is well positioned with a good support base, a lot of community members that love them and are behind them. And so it's got a shot at doing some really big things. Great suggestion by one of our viewers. I already own some of this, but I'm definitely looking to buy more of it. So for me, it's a buy, even though the charts aren't signaling a turnaround or anything yet. It's just kind of a dollar cost average buy on a lower support level for me. So, and I think for Paul, it was a wait.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
I think most of mine were a wait this week. Sorry, guys. Yeah. But it'll all change one day. I promise.
Yeah, waiting is a great strategy, and being in cash is a great strategy too. And Paul trades clear breakouts, and I'm looking forward to that time where there's just clear breakout after clear breakout. I will have taken a lot of my positions before that, but then as some hit some points that I'm happy with, I'll be selling, taking profits on some, and then rolling it into others that are in clear breakouts. Cool. Well, thanks, Paul. We appreciate your time, and yeah, loved your insights.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
I know the crypto market, it's still slow and it's frustrating. Just know that good decisions made during these pullbacks lead to life-changing ones when the market turns around. I have several friends that just stuck around during the last bear market, and they kept buying more of the projects that they liked that showed really good signs. It was just a bear market. Everything was cheap. This wrap is for all of you to reinforce the principles that I share that make all the difference in higher returns over time. Thanks so much.
into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you're bad before you're good. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a Rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a Rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a Rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a Rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this run, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go Rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crafting. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a Rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a Rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a Rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.